Thousands of Afghans scramble to get their life savings out of the country's biggest bank. The government insists their deposits are safe, but who's behind Kabul Bank's biggest crisis? And is this another sign of rampant corruption inside Hamid Karzai's government? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Hazem Seeger. Afghanistan's largest bank is on the brink of collapse after reports they had lent millions of dollars to members of the political elite. While the Afghan government draws on its foreign reserves to try and save Kabul Bank, hundreds of Afghans have been queuing outside to withdraw their money. Hoda Abdul Hamid has more.
Come back tomorrow. It's the only message from an employee of Kabul Bank to the anxious crowd waiting outside. But the mood is difficult to temper.
I've been here since 7 a.m. Once they said they ran out of money. Then they said to wait. And now they are saying again that the money is finished. They keep telling us to come back tomorrow.
People here are bracing themselves. Those who enter the bank leave with a number instead of cash.
I have wanted to withdraw $30,000, but they have not given me a single penny. This is the second day. I'm going home now.
The shockwave was ignited by media reports revealing that the bank had an estimated loss of $300 million, half of which had been invested in Dubai. Both the central bank and President Hamid Karzai were quick to issue statements to reassure the people that the Kabul Bank won't be allowed to sink. That's because it is the largest commercial bank in the country and it pays out the monthly salaries of 250,000 people. With its 134 branches across the country, the bank handles the wages of security forces and other civil servants. Experts say this marriage of convenience between the private sector and the public service could have serious implications.
If, by any chance, the government of Afghanistan does not come up with a clear plan, what will be the future of Kabul Bank after 3 months and how we are going to channel the salaries of the civil servants through different mediums or through different banks, then we will be in a real problem because Kabul Bank will not survive, according to my estimations, more than 6 months.
Bank officials admit the bank is in trouble, but say its future will not be in jeopardy.
We have a lot of cash on hand. If that is taken, we have good loans that we could borrow against that from the central government, from the Central Bank of Afghanistan. And the proceeds of those loans could go back to them. We will be back on your feet.
But over the past couple of days, more than $150 million in savings have been withdrawn. And judging by the crowd, many more millions are due to make their way out of Kabul Bank's coffers. Hoda Abdul Hamid, Al Jazeera, Kabul.
Well, joining the discussion today are our guests in Kabul, FAHIM Dashty, a political analyst and chief editor of Kabul Weekly newspaper. Also in Kabul, Farouk Bashar, political analyst and professor at Bakhtar University. And in London, Afghanistan expert and author Michael Griffin. Welcome, all of you gentlemen, to the program. FAHIM Dashty, if I could start with you. I guess my first question is, doesn't this simply confirm the suspicions of so many people, not least of all in Afghanistan, of the corruption that is rampant within their own government?
Well, the corruption is not a new issue. The issue has been raised on the last 8 years, and mainly government have been accused to be corrupt. And the recent incident of Kabul Bank again shows that this corruption is much wider, and this can affect the life of ordinary Afghans very strongly and very negatively. We have learned that the relatives of the most powerful politician of Afghanistan are withdrawing the money, cash from the Kabul Bank and investing on somewhere that nobody knows where and why and how. This shows that the corruption is much wider than we were thinking previously.
Farouk Bashar, isn't this just playing into the hands of the Taliban and other enemies of the Afghan government? I mean, we heard these assurances from Karzai's government after the election victory last year. There was a recognition that there was corruption in the system and that something would be done about it. How much does this do to undermine all those efforts?
As you are aware, in Afghanistan for the past 2 to 3 years, every country is telling that in Afghanistan corruption has reached to the highest echelon of the government. As you are aware, in Afghanistan, not only the United States and NATO, even the Afghan people are talking about corruption in the government. However, it is not only one branch of the state. This corruption exists in the legislative and the judiciary too. To reconcile and remove the corruption, it would take years. However, the way to do this, remove the corruption, is not just to change the people. We have to change the system. We have to create a kind of system that there should be a kind of check and balance on those from where do they got the money. For example, there are a high official in the government after 2 years. You can see that he has houses, he has money, he has cars, he has everything. He has invested money in Dubai and somewhere else. There is no one to control this one. Why and how those people got rich? Obviously, those people are the corrupt officials of the government. We have to stop this corruption, otherwise we will lose everything in Afghanistan. We will lose interest of the foreign countries to invest in Afghanistan, and we also lose our reputation of being nice or being the finest people. Now, what I think, if we do not take this matter seriously, it will not be only the Taliban who will criticize the government. It would be the whole union of the states and as well as the Afghan people. For that reason, what I believe, corruption by words, corruption by force could not be removed unless we have removed those elements of the government who are involved in corruption and should be tried in the court and should be sentenced very heavily. However,
but is that realistically, sorry to interrupt, is that realistically going to happen in the short term? I mean, that's been said before, but nothing's been done.
It's the reason why I am saying it is almost, if you would recall, Mr. Obama said within 6 months of the Karzai government, the corruption should stop. It is more than almost 1 year. The corruption is still of the same highest level. Today, people do not trust, the world do not trust Afghan officials. So we have to change the system in a way that should be checked on those people, that they are grabbing the money, grabbing the land, grabbing every thing from the people. So those officials, if are not controlled and they would remain in force, we will see more corruption and more problems in Afghanistan.
All right, Michael Griffin, I mean, how much of a dent does this put into the efforts by the United States to show some sort of success in Afghanistan, particularly when you know that so many of the paychecks of Afghan public employees, like soldiers and policemen and teachers and so on, are funneled through this particular bank. So, I mean, how much of a dent does this put into their progress when they want to have those Afghans on their side?
I think what we're looking at this point is a bank melting down because of bad lending practices. And when you look at the actual people who are involved in the collapse of this bank are the brother of Hamid Karzai, Mahmoud Karzai, who's a 7% owner, the brother of the vice president of Afghanistan, who is the largest creditor that's known so far, having borrowed $93 million from Kabul Bank. And the losers are the 1 million residents of Afghanistan who invested their life savings in this bank. This is a bank which has been borrowing money from clients, normal peasant clients, farmers, businessmen, and lending it to shareholders, and then finding that the shareholders have either misspent that money or invested it badly. Now, when you look at the way in which the United States is going to react to this, Hamid Karzai, the shareholder and brother of the president, has asked the United States to bail out this bank. Now, the United States has been trying to force President Karzai to investigate corruption at the highest levels of the Afghan political system. And there were apparently 17 ministers already under investigation by the anti-corruption squads that have been established with NATO and US aid. Hamid Karzai has prevented that from taking place. What we have now is simply one situation which has blown up and exposed the enormous corruption at the heart of the Hamid Karzai government, and also Hamid Karzai's refusal until the very last moment to investigate it. And that is going to result in the collapse of this bank.
Yeah,
the Americans can rescue it.
Is this reaction from the Kabul government simply the result of American pressure, that certain people got caught with their hands in the till, and so now they were forced to act?
What the Kabul Bank is described as a key pillar of the Afghan economic revival. And as you've mentioned, most of the security forces, the police, the army, and several thousand teachers are paid automatically, electronically, through this bank. If this bank collapses, a great deal is at stake in terms of America's security objectives, for example, pulling out by July 2011. So if there is no longer an army being paid regularly or a police force being paid regularly, and this bank collapses, then there is a potential for mutiny or desertion by those very forces which the United States hopes to hand over control of Afghanistan to during the coming year. Now, this is a serious blow, but at the same time, the United States cannot be sucked in to propping up a bank which is unraveling before one's eyes, and which at the same time is demonstrating all of the corruption which is inherent in the Afghan political system since 2002, the creation of the transitional state and what followed.
FAHIM,
America's
Dashty,
got a big problem.
FAHIM, Dashty, a lot of Afghans who've been able to get their money out at this point, rather than trust another bank, they might simply be tempted to just keep their money at home. I mean, what kind of damage is that going to do to the financial system in the country?
Well, I think it's going to be very dangerous for the financial system because people are going to lose their trust in the banking system of Afghanistan, and if Kabul Bank cannot manage to survive, then I think the other banks will face the same kind of challenges as Kabul Bank are facing now, and this means that most of the people who have giving their money to the bank, they will try to withdraw their money, and this will affect the total financial and system of Afghanistan as well as the economy, which going to be very dangerous for the ordinary Afghan as well as for the government of Afghanistan to deal or to tackle such kind of problems and challenges.
Professor Bashar, is this going to have a knock-on effect throughout the financial system in Afghanistan? Is this going to affect the other banks?
Oh, definitely yes. Right now, I can see that most of the people who had invested money in other banks, especially the private banks, they are trying to get their money out. They cannot do it. Queuing is a long queuing on every bank that they are trying to collect their money. That is a big blow to the economy of Afghanistan and as well as to the government. The government, it is not only the money that the people have invested, the money that is coming from different sources that they are paying the bills. The bills are paid through these banks, and they do not have that money to pay back to the company or to the ministry or to the whatever organization. They have asked the collection of their money. So it is a big and biggest scandal that I have seen in Afghanistan since the establishment of the new government in Afghanistan. If this condition is not reconciled and they do not put money to revive the bank, I believe the whole economy of Afghanistan will collapse, and no other country will dare to come to Afghanistan and invest. They are right now trying to ask the developers to come to Afghanistan. They are trying to bring banks to Afghanistan to lend money to as a mortgage to their people. And they have big projects in Afghanistan which requires borrowing money from overseas developers and as well as banks. If we consider this situation, no other banks or no other foreign country will be encouraged to come to Afghanistan and invest money, because they know that the money is going to the pockets of those influentials. They are in the government. So for that reason, what I think, if we do not, and the government is not going to control this situation and revive this bank, I'm telling you that the whole private banks will collapse and people will lose their interest and our economy will go back to zero.
Michael Griffin, I mean, we have one central bank official who's been quoted as saying that the Kabul Bank's liabilities could be well over 300 or 400 million, and that's an amount that's far greater than the assets it has on hand. Now, if that's the case, the US says that at the moment they're acting in purely a technical capacity. How long are they going to be able to stick to that line? Are they going to have to eventually bail out this bank?
Well, at the moment, the Central Bank of Afghanistan, which has something like $5 billion worth of money at its disposal, has taken over the management of Kabul Bank. They've obviously, according to your report, shut the windows. So they're not last week they were handing out 1,000 per depositor maximum. Now they're not handing out anything at all. Now the the Central Bank of Afghanistan can come to the rescue, but the question is, the United States has been pressing for Hamid Karzai to try to disentangle some of the corruption from the system that he's set up. Will they use the collapse of the Kabul Bank as a way of forcing the president to look seriously at the individual bank accounts of various members of his government and close allies, relatives, for example, like in Kandahar? Will they take this as an opportunity for breaking open the rotten barrel of apples that the government has become? Or will they say that it's more important to prop up a corrupt bank that's been handing out political loans to political people? Will it prop it up in order to retain, ensure stability?
All right, let's put
particularly the stability.
Let's put that to Fahim Dashty. Do you think that the United States can now use what's happened now with the Kabul Bank as greater leverage against Karzai's government to clean house?
I think some of the officials on the government, as well as some of the Kabul Bank authorities, are considering the issue on that direction. They feel that the collapse of Kabul Bank has been is something which has been directed by the US, and now the US government will benefit from this situation to pressurize the government of Afghanistan or the President Karzai government. This is the consideration, a kind of consideration within this Afghan government officials as well as Kabul Bank. But I think what we need on the current situation in Afghanistan is a strong cooperation between both sides, between international community as well as Afghan government, to fight terrorism. Otherwise, if they use this opportunity to bring down the government of Afghanistan or the President Karzai government, this can have negative as well as positive effects, but nobody can predict what's going to happen next.
Farouk Bashir, you want to respond to that?
Yes. What would happen supposedly if the Kabul Bank is not revived? The whole banks, private banks in this country will collapse. As Mr. Griffin said, in Afghanistan, people have lost not only their trust in the banks, but in the government too. The government is trying right now to the central bank to pour some money to this institution or to the Kabul Bank to keep it from the collapse. However, whatever they should say, the international community and as well as the Afghan people will not dare to put more money in this institution, because they know right now that the corruption has started not only with the government, and now has started with the private banks. These banks were trusted at the beginning. We thought that these banks will work as it is in the other countries in the world. However, we realized that they are mismanaging the whole system. The shareholders the CEOs are borrowing money from the bank, which is totally illegal. I believe those type of people should be prosecuted and brought to justice and say why. You have borrowed millions, hundreds of millions of dollars from the bank, and you have deposited in your own personal account, or you have used it for buying real estate and building some projects. For that reason, what I think that it is an intentional mismanagement, and collapse of this bank will collapse the whole economy of the country.
So what provisions are there, if any, that something like this won't happen again? I mean, we heard these stories of investments of up to $150 million in luxury villas and condominiums in Dubai. I mean, it all just begs the question, how deep does this go, and why was it allowed to carry on for so long?
It is not only invested in Dubai, the money has been invested in Kandahar, the money has been invested in the north, and the money has been invested in a lot of other countries. So it is not only in Dubai, it is invested somewhere else too. We have to find all of those sources, all of those institutions that the Kabul Bank has invested money in those, and invested in what? As you know, the real estate in Dubai is right now going down instead of going up. So obviously the money which is invested in Dubai is just a mismanagement of the Kabul Bank money. So what we should do, we have to take the control of this bank, or the government has to take the control, or the international community should take control of this bank and see how much asset this bank right now have, how much money he has lended to the shareholders, and how much money has been misused by the CEOs of the bank. If they are not investigating this one carefully and totally, then I believe it will not be only Afghanistan, the international community will lose their interest in Afghanistan, because what happened right now, it is not only the money that is coming from the salary of the employees of government, the institutions, for example, the British Shirkat, which is a power company, is collecting their money from the
all right. Briefly in the minute or so, Michael Griffin, I just want to have the last question to you in the minute or so that we have left. How do you see all of this playing out in the long term? Do you expect more revelations like this in the future?
Well, quite immediately what I see is that this is going to be a major election issue during the parliamentary elections due sometime in September, possibly October, depending on the state of security. So voters are going to be looking to their MPs to see if they're the same kinds of people that were in control of this very, very popular bank, very modern bank. Are these the same kinds of people? And I suspect the second thing is, as one of your previous spokesmen said, it's going to force a return to hawala. Now, the hawala system of informal banking was unthroned a little bit in Afghanistan by the rise of banks like the Kabul Bank and others. But I think we're going to see a reversal of trust of these kinds of institutions, which are clearly run like cowboy operations on behalf of politicians. Whether it will get to a straight-ahead corruption investigation the United States wants and Afghan so badly needs, I think this is a question best left to the White House to determine. I suspect not.
All right, we are going to have to leave it there. I want to thank all of our guests for taking part, Fahim, Dashty and Farouk Bashar in Kabul and Michael Griffin in London. Gentlemen, thank you to all of you for your time. And thanks so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. As always, we welcome your comments and suggestions. You can email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Bye for now.